What if death wasn't the end, but merely the moment we wake up from a great illusion? What if what we call the afterlife was not a distant place, but a dimension towards which the soul heads through a real journey? Man has always wondered what happens after the last breath. Is there nothing? Is there a judgment? Is there a light? Is there a return? According to many spiritual visions, death does not represent the end of the experience, but the passage from one state of existence to another. And what happens afterward can be much more complex, profound, and surprising than we imagine. In this view, death doesn't begin exactly the moment the physical body ceases to exist. In fact, something can begin to separate even earlier. For some people, this process can begin a few days before death. For others, it can begin weeks, months, or even years before. Those who are highly sensitive may sense that a threshold has been crossed, as if a part of the person has already begun to slowly move away from the material plane. When the moment of physical death arrives, the first thing to be left behind is the body. This is the most obvious part, the one everyone can see. But according to this view, consciousness doesn't shut down. The experience continues. The person simply isn't in the same state as before. At first, perceived reality can be so similar to physical reality that many don't immediately realize they've died. They can see familiar places. They can sense their loved ones. They can still feel present, still alive, still close to the world they just left. And this is precisely why the first few days after death are useful for understanding something fundamental. One no longer belongs to the physical dimension. From this perspective, one of the biggest problems arises when the person doesn't realize they've died. If this happens, it may not be able to take the path that leads to the afterlife, and then it may remain stranded near the earthly plane, becoming what is commonly called a ghost. However, it's not the entire soul that remains trapped, but rather some energetic components of the person, still tied to life, places, emotions, or unfinished business. After death, according to this view, the person still has a certain amount of energy available, but they can no longer nourish themselves as they did through the body. Friends, people with whom there was a deep connection, but also those with whom there were unsettled accounts, unspoken words, unresolved emotions. It's as if the deceased were taking a look back at their life just ended, a final passage through the threads that tied them to the world. It can try to make its presence felt. It can send signals. It can seek contact. Sometimes these signals can manifest themselves through dreams, sensations, coincidences, objects that seem to appear at the right time, a caress felt without explanation, a phrase overheard by chance, a recurring number, a presence subtly felt. According to this view, communication would be easier in the first few days after death, because the deceased is still very close to the vibration of the physical world. Therefore, those remaining could try to communicate with the deceased simply, not with fear, not with obsession, but with love, calm, and respect. An internal question, a sincere thought, a silent listening. But it's important that the pain isn't so strong that it distorts every perception, because intense emotions can confuse the message. In ancient traditions, 40 days were often spoken of. According to this view, the period closest to the earthly dimension could last even less, around 2 or 3 weeks. An inner feeling, as if something were telling him he shouldn't stay here any longer, that the time for goodbyes is over, that the journey must continue. At that point, another phase begins, a very delicate phase. The person begins to strip himself not only of the physical body, but also of the mind, the ideas, the convictions, the beliefs that he has accumulated during his life. And right here, something surprising can happen. The person can experience his own idea of the afterlife. Those who were convinced that nothing exists after death could find themselves in an empty, dark, silent space, apparently devoid of any presence. Not because that's the ultimate truth, but because in that phase the mind projects its own belief. It's as if the inner world becomes a landscape, as if what we believed takes shape before us. Many people at this stage describe or perceive a tunnel, a passage, a threshold, a corridor between two states of being. Others may see a garden, still others a light, a familiar place, a welcoming presence. The images may change, but the meaning remains the same. The journey to the afterlife is beginning. According to this view, the journey after death passes through three great phases, which religious traditions have called hell, purgatory, and heaven. But here we must not imagine them as places of reward or punishment imposed by an external judge. It would not be a divine tribunal in the human sense of the term. Rather, it would be the manifestation of our inner reality. In other words, after death we experience what we have become. Our identifications, our attachments, our fears, our desires, our mistakes, our love, our density, or our lightness. The longer a person has remained tied to heavy vibrations, the more they tend to linger on lower levels. However, the more they have developed awareness, love, balance, and inner freedom, the faster and easier the journey becomes. Or it's not a condemnation, it's a law of resonance. You go where you vibrate. The phase called hell would therefore be a tormented dimension, but not eternal in the absolute sense. It is the inner place where one's lowest identifications meet. Anyone who has been dominated in life by a hunger, an addiction, a craving, violence, or an obsession may find themselves surrounded by beings who share that same vibration, but without the physical body with which to satisfy it. Imagine a person who has tied his entire life to desire, possession, or addiction. After death, he might still experience that hunger, but without the material means to satisfy it. Oh, this is what makes the lower stage so painful. Not an external punishment, but the inability to satisfy what we have clung to. It is a stage of stripping. A part of us is torn away from what we had identified with. Oh, and the stronger the attachment, the more painful the detachment can be. But the very meaning of the process is precisely to free oneself of what cannot enter the brighter afterlife. When these heavier layers are released, one arrives at a next stage, what many traditions call purgatory. Here the experience changes. It is no longer the same tormented darkness. You are welcomed. There are presences, spiritual beings, energies that help the soul understand, process, prepare. At this stage, a life review can take place. What many spiritual stories describe as seeing one's life flash before one's eyes like a movie. But it wouldn't be a simple memory. It would be a profound understanding. We review what we've done, what we've said, what we've given, what we've taken away, the good we've given, the pain we've caused. And the most profound thing is that the soul doesn't observe everything coldly. It feels, it understands. It even perceives the effect its actions have had on others. If he has caused suffering, he feels that suffering. If he has loved, he recognizes that value. If he has wasted opportunities, he understands their weight. It is already here that the karma of the next life would be prepared. Not as punishment, but as a need for balance. What has not been understood will have to be understood. What has not been repaired will have to find a way to harmonize. The next life would also arise from this profound reworking. When the soul can accept the life it has lived, with its mistakes, its pains, its lessons, and its opportunities, then it can also let go of that identification. It's no longer just that person. It's no longer just that name. It's no longer just that story. It's preparing to remember something much bigger. And it's here that the dimension we commonly call paradise opens up. Or more broadly, the afterlife. According to this vision, the afterlife is a positive, luminous, harmonious dimension where negative vibrations cannot enter, not because they are punished, but because they simply do not belong there. The afterlife would be composed of many levels. At the lowest levels, the experience can still resemble human life, but without the burden of negative emotions. There is harmony, there is love, there is brotherhood, there is a sense of profound peace. But the structure of experience may still be recognizable, almost familiar. At higher levels, however, freedom increases, consciousness expands, perception becomes broader. One feels less and less separate and more part of a spiritual community. It is as if the soul gradually remembers that it belongs to something greater, To understand this idea, imagine a tree. At the base are many roots, separate and branching. As you ascend, however, the roots rejoin into a single trunk. This is how the levels of the afterlife would be, many at first, increasingly unified as you ascend. At the lowest levels, many different realities can exist, almost like cities suspended in the sky. The place where one is welcomed would depend on the type of life one has lived, one's spiritual level, one's connections, and where one lived or died. But as one ascends, everything tends to reunite. At the highest levels of the afterlife, highly evolved spiritual beings would be found. Consciousnesses that have reached a degree of freedom and awareness barely imaginable to the human mind. From those levels, access to higher dimensions would also open up, not understood as parallel places but as more subtle, vaster, and deeper states of existence. In this vision, Earth would not be the only place of experience. The universe would be full of life, dimensions, paths, and evolutionary possibilities. The afterlife tied to Earth would be only part of a much larger system, interconnected with other realities in the universe. A fundamental point is that once we reach the afterlife, we are not simply what we believe we are today. We are not just the name we bear. We are not just the body we once had. We are not just our role, our profession, our family, our personal history. After being stripped, a broader memory is recovered. The soul remembers that it is much older than the life just ended. It remembers other experiences, other paths, other lives, other connections. It is as if what we call I were only a small part of a much larger consciousness. This is why spiritual work during life would be of enormous value. Because learning not to identify with the body, mind, emotions, and roles makes the transition after death easier. Those who have already learned not to be slaves to their attachments, fears, and illusions navigate the journey with greater clarity. Even out-of-body experiences, according to this view, can be a preparation. They help us understand that consciousness is not just the physical body. Learning to move without completely identifying with the body can make the transition to the afterlife less traumatic. Another important theme concerns the deceased in dreams. When we dream of a loved one who is no longer with us, it's not always just a matter of memory or nostalgia. According to many spiritual visions, dreams can often become a real channel of communication, a subtle place where the deceased can reach us more easily, because the rational mind is less rigid and the heart is more open. The deceased can also communicate in many other ways, through animals, objects, coincidences, numbers, sensations, intuitions, phrases heard at the right time. But the point is not to obsessively search for signs everywhere. The point is to develop listening, presence, and love. Because in this vision, what truly remains beyond death is love, not possessions, not control, not money, not pride, not social masks. Love given is the true wealth the soul preserves. Love is the glue of the spiritual world. It is what allows for recognition, for rediscovery, for reunion. Even with beloved animals, according to this perspective, the bond is not lost. If there was true love, that experience remains imprinted, preserved, alive in a form that transcends matter. And then death changes face. It is no longer just a loss. It is no longer just an end. It is no longer just darkness. It becomes a passage. It becomes a return. It becomes a revelation. It becomes the moment in which the soul is freed, understands, remembers, and continues on its journey. This doesn't mean denying the pain of those left behind. Grief is real. Loss is real. Emptiness is real. But perhaps, if this vision contains even a grain of truth, then no authentic love is truly destroyed. No deep bond is erased, and no life truly ends in nothingness. The real question then is not just what happens after death. The real question is, how am I living now, knowing that what I am today will become the landscape I will encounter tomorrow? Because if after death we encounter our vibration, then every thought, every choice, every gesture of love has enormous weight. And perhaps the meaning of life is precisely this: learning to love better. Freeing ourselves from the most burdensome identifications. transforming pain into awareness, and arriving at the moment of transition with less fear, more clarity, and more peace. If this journey into the afterlife has given you pause, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss future content. Leave a like and a comment if you'd like to support this work. See you in the next video.